This is something to do with competition as well. I competed just this weekend gone at the ADCC trials in Sydney, and I had like a really good run up until the final, and unfortunately in the final I lost on points to another really good athlete. But I think I almost had like the complete opposite like issue this time. So throughout like most of my competitive kind of scenarios, I've always been like super aggressive and really pushing the pace and everything. And because I had some like newfound success in like being a little bit more controlled and composed or whatever, and actually that worked really well in the first few fights where I got really quick submissions, and I think this also had some effect on it as well. But like I had some really quick success because of that approach. But I almost like had like the opposite end of the spectrum kind of issue where once I got into the final, because I had such little mat time, and I just didn't have I don't know, that adrenaline dump you normally get after like competing for 3 to 5 minutes or whatever, and like really opening up your lungs and stuff like that. Once I got into the final, like I felt really calm actually. I felt really good. I wasn't as nervous as I would normally be. But like 2 minutes into the fight, I got super tired. And I just thought it was a really interesting kind of contrast to what I normally have an issue with.
I've seen the highlights that are on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you were, you're a little bit more relaxed, a little bit slower in, and you were leaving not an opening, but you were leaving space for the other person. But in a couple of those, I noticed something you were doing differently, and that was you do a thing where you stop and you're waiting for your opponent to move. So it'll be some sort of a transitional position, and you might be sitting or leaning. You've got a hip or some sort of contact.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for your opponent to decide which way they're going to go, and that decides which way you go.
Yeah.
And there's usually you're usually setting an attack 2 or 3 moves up from that. But you're usually really studied about that, and you're usually intensely in it. And you weren't this time. You were looking around. You were actually, or you'd look off into the distance, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I actually said that when I was watching it as well. So there was something else had entered into your game, and it might have been that 3 submissions in 3 minutes. It was pretty blistering work, and you were fairly acrobatic as usual. But there was this other thing, and I wasn't quite sure what that was. Whether stopping and waiting for the other person to move, you were also. I don't know. I needed to talk to you about it. And I needed to think about it some more. But there was a space. You were certainly creating space there, which I thought, was obvious, and people were opening up a lot more to you.
Yeah.
And getting beaten as a result. I haven't seen that last fight, but certainly.
Yeah, the final was pretty one-sided, I would say. Like, I felt like pretty. Like I'm still strong and athletic and all that stuff, but it was just a very passive kind of interaction. Like I wasn't really I just wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, to be honest. Like I was very lethargic and very slow to react, and very, I don't know, just kind of like a step behind almost. And like honestly, I just felt really tired and exhausted. And I don't know, like there's the competition day and you're there from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. or whatever. But I've never had an issue with that before, and I think actually I got so like composed and calm and relaxed. I just wasn't actually prepared for like a really intense 8 minutes all or nothing kind of bout, you know what I mean? Especially, again, like I said before, with like the 3 minutes of competition before that and 3 fights and just having really quick success. I just didn't have that same, like, I don't know, like spike in heart rate and stuff like that, and spike in adrenaline where you can come down from and you're prepared for it again. I kind of got the first hit in the final, and then it kind of really it made it very difficult for me to like enter back into the competition. Does that make sense?
But yeah, absolutely. And fighters talk about this all the time. If you're just not being there one day, the timing's off, the